Welcome, everybody. This is the Mental Edge. This is episode number 5, and I'm so happy you're all here with us. My name is Stacy Goodrich. I'm your host, and I'm excited to bring on today Presley Loberg. We're going to talk about her experience and the mental side and how we can really train from the inside out. So many athletes, and Presley, I don't know if you agree with me, but so many athletes are taught to kind of just do it. Don't think about it. Get out of your head. Don't overthink it. Get out of your mind. And I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes that doesn't always work. So can you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about how old you are and what sport you play, and then we'll go from there.
My name is Presley. I'm 16 years old and I've been playing softball for a pretty long time now. And it's gotten to the extent where it's a big deal in my life and I want to pursue it, um, going into college and things like that. Um, on the mental side of the game, I think I've struggled a little bit and that's been a little bit harder for me. And I worked with Stacy a couple of times and her theory of the A circle and how that works has really helped me. And it still does to this day as I continue to struggle with it. And as Stacy was saying, some people are just gifted with being able to just play the game. I don't think I had that. And some people do it really well. They just play the game and perform, and they don't really think of it as much. But there's also the players that do think of it more. And both players are valuable, but recognizing that the mental side of this sport or every sport is really important and knowing how to deal with it in every situation is also a big deal. So, yeah.
Well, and Presley, you are interesting in with what you said and the idea that you're kind of hard on yourself, right? And when you say you struggle mentally, I think that that's an important thing to kind of talk about, because all athletes, and from my perspective, are taught what I call the doing strategy. They're taught do it, don't think about it. And when that doesn't work, when I can't just do it, and I can't, then what happens is my mind gets in my way. And most athletes are taught that there's something wrong with their mind if that's the case. Get out of your head. Don't think about it. Think of baking, when you're pitching, or they're told to try to move around that. But what people don't realize is that is not necessarily the solution. When coaches tell athletes to get out of their head or don't think about it, that's actually not a solution for what's going on in the situation. And so you point out such an important conflict mentally when those things happen. There's nothing wrong with you because you need to use your mind to support your process. But when athletes are taught, don't think about it, just get out of your head, it gives the idea that there's something wrong with your mind.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. Like, whether you're a young child, like my daughter was 9 when she couldn't do her back walk over on the beam, or if you're like an Olympian or a pro athlete, a lot of the NFL players get to the NFL just by doing it without thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think all of us, at some point, there's a situation where it doesn't work, where we can't just do it. And so I think that that's helpful for you to explain, that for you, what works better? Like, when you think about playing the game, when we first started, for instance, you mentioned A circle. And for those of the people who don't know anything about A circle, whatever is in our A circle is what's controlling us or what's making decisions for us. And B circle are people or things that support you to make a decision, or they can influence your decisions, but they're not making it for you. And C circle is everything else outside of that, or everything else that doesn't matter. Now, we can have lots of things in our A circle. We can have people. We can have our coaches. We can have our teammates. We can have our parents. in our A circle, and that can affect us a certain way. We can also have thoughts in our A circle. I don't want to strike out. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to upset my coach. Those thoughts can be in our A circle. And we can also have energy like fear or worry or anxiety or confidence. And when you think, Press, back in the day when before we even met, what was going on for you? Was there anything that you remember in your A circle in a negative way, or what was happening for you mentally that was the problem for you?
I was a pitcher back then when I was younger, about like 11 or 12, and that was like the funnest time to play the game, and I was just enjoying all of it and just having so much fun competing and just doing well with my teammates and just having a lot of fun. And then it got to a point where I was old enough to like go to club ball and start playing more competitively with like people around the state that I like didn't know. And as we know, pitching is kind of an individual thing, and individual things in sports seem to be like a lot of pressure, and I took it as that kind of a way. And once I got to club ball, I think it just got in my head, and I just was negatively thinking like what's going to happen next, like who's looking at me, who's watching me, because once club ball starts, like there's a question in your head about like college and the future and whether you're going to get better or not, or what, like where you're placing and like all these things. And I think a lot of those things got in my head, and comparing myself to other people was a big thing, because back then when I was younger, like I was the best of the best, and I loved that because I didn't have to compare myself to anybody else, and it just wasn't an issue to me. And I think other people in my surroundings kind of got to me as I got better, because like people are all competing to be the best, and you're not the best, and you have to realize that and not compare yourself to others, but also like realize that you're really good and that you're amazing, and like keeping the other people and your surroundings and everything else like outside of what really matters and what you are working for is like I think the hardest thing for me, um, because I think that's what I struggled with, just the thoughts like of everyone else and what everyone else was doing and how hard they were working and just what they were thinking about me and all of those things.
And Presley, you know, all of those thoughts are valid. And, most people will say, oh, just get out of your head. Don't think about that. You don't have to worry about those people. But it's not about that. That I wish that that worked, right? It would have been great if your coaches could have said, Presley, don't worry about that, and that would have worked for you. But when we have those thoughts in our A circle, and when we have things that are affecting us, the situation, your teammates, just your ideas about yourself, um, the most important thing for people to understand is that if they can practice validating those thoughts, acknowledging those thoughts, then they can work with them instead of trying to move around them. And does it make sense that when we first started, you found yourself trying to move around all these things that were in your A circle? And it's not that they were bad or good. It was just that they didn't always support you to be able to play the way you knew you could play.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think
A lot of people like don't even realize it like at all. And they're like, oh, this girl, like, she's so amazing. But it's like you don't realize deep down like what they're thinking in their mind, or like how hard it is to like compete with the pressure of like what they think about you versus like how you actually perform. And that's the biggest thing about it. Like people don't understand when, and they're just like forget about it, or like just move on, or just play the game, or just do that. It's like they don't realize it. And so, for some people it does work, and that's really, really nice, and I wish that it would be that way for everyone, but not everyone it works like that. And I think everyone has a mental side of the game, but like some people can control it way better than others, and some people just think about it more, like myself. And I think I just dwell on that a little bit.
Well, you're right. And your mind is smart, Presley. Your mind is smart because it wants you to use it. It wants you to know how to help yourself. And but the majority of coaching out there is going to make you try to not think about what you're doing or not focus on what you need to do. And so it's such an interesting point for people to understand. They wonder why people quit the sport, when they do. And it's mostly, in my opinion, because of the mental pressure or the stress that they have on themselves or people put on them without trying to put that on them. And they don't know how to manage it.
Yeah.
You didn't know you had an A circle back then. You didn't know how to manage what was in your A circle. And so it became mentally stressful and it can weigh you down.
Hmm.
And so I think that even though we all still there's always going to be something in our A circle that we have to figure out, but understanding that you are successful and then we can go from there can help you not have to feel the pressure of always doing it perfectly. I know you like to do things perfectly or the way you want to, and that's a great quality to have, but sometimes when it doesn't go according to the way you think it should, does it make sense that sometimes that kicks you out of your body or it affects you in a negative way?
Yeah, I think that I don't know about other people, but I think my mind has like an idea of what it wants something to look like. Like when I was a pitcher, I had an idea or a vision in my head of what I wanted each pitch to look like coming
Mhm.
out of my hand. Like I don't know, I just had like in my head I had like a vision of me watching myself pitch. And I think when that like didn't work out or something, or like something was off a little bit, I think I just got in my head about that, and I was just like, why is that different from what I wanted it to be like?
Mm.
And I think that um stopped me, and I think it just like surprised me and like threw me off a little bit, and then I think it just started spiraling um downward from there.
Presley, that's I love to do these podcasts because I think understanding what's going on is so important. And when people don't understand what's going on, how can they change it? How can they shift their mindset? And you knowing that, first of all, that you have the desire to know to do what you want to do. But do you see how when you didn't have a solution for that when it was off, that kicked you out of your body?
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't know the doing strategy or the learning strategy. You didn't know you could feel your way through the throw, see your way through it, talk your way through it, think your way through it, or some kind of combination, or kick your mind out and just do it, right? You didn't. And so in that situation, you had to have it, or you in your mind, like you said it very well, it had to be a certain way. And when it didn't go like that, you got disconnected. And that
Yeah.
happens to all athletes at some point. But if they don't have a new place to land or a way to manage that, then it can cause issues over time where things get piled up in a negative way in your A circle.
Mm-hmm.
So what works best for you, Press, when you're playing? Like, do you feel your way through the game, see your way through, talk your way through, think your way through, some kind of combination? What works best for you?
um I think feeling my way through is a very good way of like getting my back into my body. I think that because like the visions that are in my mind that I try to like replicate that I want to do, I feel like imagining them and then trying to like replicate it by feeling it out like through each swing or like each at bat I think it's really helped me. Because
Oh,
even like hitting in every aspect of the game, I have a vision in my mind of what I want it to look like, and kind of copying it with the actions of my body, and just knowing that like what I have to do and what I have to get done in a certain amount of time is also another thing. Thinking it probably isn't the best way, just because there's like a lot going on, and
yeah.
when I think about what I have to do, I think that gets in the way and it pushes me away from what I have to do, so I kind of just have to like feel my body through each swing and just know that I'm capable of doing that. And
Well,
yeah,
Presley, you explained it so well because so often parents will come to me and they'll say, my athlete needs to visualize. A lot of coaches will say, visualize yourself doing it. And my daughter, who is a Division I gymnast, called me from Ball State one time and said, my mental skills coach told me to visualize myself on the beam. And she said, and I see myself on the side of the beam. And I said, yeah, don't do that. That doesn't work for you. But for you, the idea of visualizing yourself before you go can be helpful. But as you're doing it, you're feeling your way through is what works for you to mentally connect to your body in the moment. Does that make sense?
yeah,
And so that's what's important for people to know. It's not kicking your mind out. Well, if it works to kick your mind out and just do it, that's great because a lot of people just want to do that, which I get it. But what's really valuable for people is to understand what modality works for them while they're doing the game, whether it's feeling their way through seeing, talking, thinking, or allowing their body to do it. There's all kinds of different things, but that's what really can be helpful. So when an athlete, the doing strategy doesn't work, they have a new place to land. And so I don't even think you consciously realize that that's what you are doing, but do you see how you can use that more often?
yeah. And these analogies are just so amazing because it's different for everyone, and you kind of have to experiment with every single aspect to figure out what's best for you. Like, I tried to hear my way through it, I tried to see my way through it, and think my way through it, and they didn't work out in the beginning, but just like trying each thing out and like not giving up on like what you really want is like really important with this, because you have to figure out what you need, and every athlete is different, and that's what's really cool about sports, because everyone is so different, and it's very cool to just watch an athlete and like watch how they appear and watch how they do things, because like all of them have a different thing going on in their mind, and they all do things differently.
That's so true, Press. And in the beginning, you mentioned, you had a huge drive to do this in college, like when you were really young. Is that true?
Yeah,
And
and
so
I still
for,
do, but just for pitching. But yeah,
and I teach us the strategy called goal beyond the goal. And so you had a natural goal beyond the goal that really kept you working on things. Does that make sense? Like you kept trying different ways to figure things out mentally and physically because you had this desire beyond today to do this in college. Can you speak a little bit about that? How has goal beyond the goal, or in your case, the idea of doing it in college, it may be not always positive, it may not, right? To have that as a goal beyond the goal. But can you explain a little bit about how you've been able to use that for yourself?
yeah. I think just knowing what it'll be like later in life, and knowing how like happy I'll be, and just like training. It's not really fun in the winter because Minnesota's like very snowy, and it's indoors, and it's kind of gloomy all winter, but just knowing like later on like it'll work out, like it will. And like believing that is also really hard, And that's another aspect of the game, like believing in yourself that it will work out and it's gonna like happen later on. Um, but just like training hard and like for me, hitting is like one of my main things I'm working on right now because it's like I think it's the hardest aspect of the game other than pitching. But just each swing, I sometimes have that extra grit in me to just swing extra hard because I just know that later on in life, like I want to go there and I want to get to the point where I'm as good as I'm the best of the best because that's the grit that's telling me that where I want to go. And um a lot of athletes my age are training this hard and knowing that also motivates me because
Mm.
we're trying to get to the same spot. And it's like who's gonna make that extra step to get even further? And I think just knowing that other people are doing that like also motivates me. Um and I just remind myself of the goal beyond the goal a lot of the time and just I just have to have faith in myself and know that like I'm gonna make it there. I keep trying and I keep working and I think you just knowing that it's gonna work out is like a big thing for me and just continuing to do well and just know what I'm doing and yeah.
You mentioned belief and knowing, and it's interesting, over the past couple of months, I really tapped into how to help people believe in themselves. And belief is built on the idea that you know what you know. It's an experience that you have had in the past that you then use that experience moving forward to practice it. And that's where the belief comes in. And you described it, Presley, so well. And do you see how that mentality gives you the ability to practice it and even use it more often?
Yes, and you mentioned past like memories like motivate you. Like I that's a really good point because I'm a visual person and I just envision myself like on a college field someday, like at having an at bat and I envision like my past experiences and past like really good times. And I think that also is really motivating because it also tells you like I'm really good. Like I'm a really good player and I can do it. And I think just like memories or like reminders, like just those little like things that pop up in my head also really help. And there's also bad things, like bad memories of like you striking out and just looking so embarrassing and that'll come. But I think just like trying your hardest to like blank those out and also thinking about all the good that you've done is really important to do and at least try to do. Um, and every time I think of something bad, like I'll think of myself striking out and like, well, what about that hit that I got that same game or something? Because you kind of just have to also bring the positives into yourself and just know that you're gonna have bad times and good.
Well, and you also, what you said earlier was it always works out. And when you have that mentality of it's always going to work out, it doesn't mean that every moment is perfect. It just means that you're learning and processing, knowing that it's all a part of it. It's all a part of the process to you getting where you want to go and you achieving the goals that you have. And the belief side of that and being confident, what would you say, Press, at this stage of the game? Is there anything that you feel like is lacking in your game or you feel like you need more of?
I just had this conversation with my coach the other day. He said the one thing that is like missing in you, Presley, is your mind. Like the one, like you have everything to get there, but the one thing that you need more of, or yeah, you need more of is like self-talk and just mental, like your head needs to be there with your body. And I was like, I know that. And then I had gotten a hit because I had a tournament like a week ago. And he was like, I think I believed that you were gonna get that hit more than you did. And I said, I think you might be right. And he gave me a hug and he said, Presley, you are so good and you are so capable of doing it. But you have to know that you're going to be able to do it before you do it. And I said, I know. And then he said, that's the one thing you're missing. And I was like, so I think, um, I do all the training, I do everything. But I think I should think more about like what happened and where my head was at some points. Cause like, I need to write down, like, I always write in my notes, like, I did really good this game doing this and like all this stuff. And I think just keeping in your like mind, like knowing what you did in the past that like has helped you or like hasn't helped you. But everything else like is there. Just that one thing is kind of a little bit in the air right now.
Well, Presley, what I want you to know is that your coach is actually seeing in you where you believe in yourself. He couldn't believe in you if you didn't have it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when he recognized that idea, yes, he's in your A circle with you and he believes in you. And I want you to keep it there if that's what works for you, right? To have him there because he believes in you. But he could never see something in you that you didn't have in yourself. So when he recognizes that, I want you to be able to go, oh, because you explained to me how you believe in yourself. You just haven't always known how to connect the dots with being in the moment and believing in yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
actually are extremely mentally strong. And you actually can, when they see something physically, like a gap in the physical game, that's where you can show up for your mental strategies and do it for yourself.
Yeah, I know everything. I'm very wise on the mental part.
You
You've
are.
really helped, and I know every single aspect of my swing. I know each step, like everything about the game. I'm very very wise, and I know all of it. I
Mhm.
just you're right. Like connecting the dots and actually performing in the moment is the one thing that I
You
think
can, yeah, you can
I
practice.
can definitely build on that. And knowing that now, like how you worded that was really good. And I should actually write that down because that's really good.
Well, good thing you will be able to, you can listen to this again, but you can write it down after we're done too. And I should send you another book because I bet you don't have, are you done? Do you write in your books? Do you have my book?
Yeah, I do.
You could write in that. That might be helpful because I do
Mm-hmm.
ask all those questions in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Presley, and that's the thing that I think that the listener, when coaches don't know how to help an athlete go from the inside out on the mental, sometimes they do put it back on the athlete a little bit. It's not intended to be negative. But that's where I want you to step into that a little bit and know that you can do what you need to do. And it's not a good or bad or perfect or, it's just oh, what do I need to do to meet him halfway?
Mm-hmm.
Because I cannot, but I haven't never had an athlete explain belief the way you explained it to me. And then he is questioning your belief in yourself. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So
I
you
think I worded it wrong, but you worded it right when you said connect the dots.
Yes, and you just didn't know how to mentally like step into that for yourself. And that's that's what this is all about. That's what we're learning. That's what you're teaching me with where you're at and where you're headed and how to connect the dots and align yourself and, you know, connect your mind to your body or your conscious mind and your unconscious mind or your who you are to what you're doing. And you're doing an amazing job at being okay with where you're at, but having that desire to want more.
Yeah, and the desire to want more is a big thing because I was at a hitting lesson recently with my hitting coach, and he knows all what's going on because I tell him, I genuinely tell him like all the stuff. And I was about to hit off the tee, and he was like, Presley, I can see steam coming out of your ears right now. You have so much in your mind. And I said, how do you know? And he said, I can just see it. Like, I can see the steam coming out of your ears. And I thought that was just the craziest thing ever. But he knew. Like, he knew by the look on my face right before I was about to swing. And I just think that's really cool. But also, like, how does he know? And obviously, he knows me really well. And he knows me as a hitter. Um, but just like, I don't know. I thought that was very interesting. And when I do hit with him, I do want more. So he knew in that moment that I did want more. And I,
And he saw what was in your way.
mm-hmm,
He saw what was in your way mentally. And
mm-hmm,
that's where you can step into it and go, oh yeah, what is in my A circle? Is it positive? Is it negative? How's that serving me? Just get curious about what's in your head. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I got to kick everything out. It doesn't have to be a good or a bad thing. It can be like, I want to really hit the ball well, and I want to, maximize this private lesson. And, can be lots of different things.
mm-hmm,
That's where you can also practice being okay with what's in your head. There's nothing wrong with your head.
mm-hmm,
That's been a big thing for you to try to kind of move around some of the things that are in your mind, because you've been told that your mind is kind of the weakest part, but that's not actually true about you. Your mind is one of your strengths. And when you can step into it and learn how to just be okay with it, that's going to shift the idea of it into more of what you want versus what I don't want.
yeah, yeah, stepping into it, I think, um, that's what I gotta do. But it's like, you're like, how would I do that when there's a bunch of things in my mind that are telling me otherwise?
Well, how in that situation, when that coach said that, what could you have done in that situation to take care of you better?
Well, I had already gotten the hit, but he said, um, he was like, you just, you're in your head about things. And I was like, I know.
Was it but in that situation, were you in your head in a positive way, a negative way, or both, or neither?
I'm, it kind of like, when he told me that, it wasn't negative because, like, knowing that, like, mentally, that's the only aspect that I have to fix, I'm like, that should be easy, but also hard at the same time. But also, I could do it. Like, I know that I can do it. Like, I know. So I'm like, okay, that's good to know. That's good to know that he believes in me. That's good to know that he is happy with how my performance is. But the one thing that he isn't happy with is my mental performance, which is, I don't know, it's kind of motivating to want to fix it to me. And also, like, kind of sad that, like, I have to deal with that. And, like, not all athletes do, which I hate the comparison because some athletes, like, don't even have to deal with it at all. Like, they don't even think about it. And then I'm here and I have to deal with it. And it's just like frustrating. But there's so many more things that are worse now. So I'm like thankful at the same time, you know? There's just like a lot that I think about. But a lot of the times I compare myself to other athletes or other people and how they think. Um,
Well,
so
it's and press, it's not what's in your A circle that matters, it's how you perceive it that dictates your behavior. Okay. And so if you have somebody who says you have a lot in your head, it's not that that's bad or good or bad that you do. It's your judgment or your perception of that idea that's going to control your behavior. So the more you can embrace being in your head, in this case, the easier it will be for you to control it instead of it controlling you. Because you being in your head is a good thing. You being in your head has been a resource for you. It's been an amazing asset because you're so smart.
Yeah, I've learned so much from it, so I am grateful for it. But it's also a
But
thing.
when people say that, it's because they don't know how to, only reason that people say that to you, Press, is because they don't know what to do about that part. And I do.
Mhm.
And so,
Nobody has a clue.
no, nobody has a clue. And that's why they put it back on the athlete. It's a little bit like, what are you going to do about it as a coach? When people say that, I'm like, well, how are you helping her with that? Right? Because they put it back on the athlete. So part of me is like, but there's nothing wrong with you mentally. In fact, you know exactly what to do, and you said it perfectly. It wasn't that there was anything negative in your A circle. You got the hit. And so by him recognizing that, that's a benefit for you that then you can think about that. Oh, what is in my head? How is it helpful? How is it not? You can start to move into it and be grateful and kick out the things that aren't helpful, but then move forward with that strength to do what you need to do because of the stuff in your head,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, he knew though, which I think was I don't know how other people know again. Like
Well,
I
I know I can see in an athlete when we watch our Vikings kickers and we see that you can see what's in his A circle, right? When he chokes.
yeah, but I still just I don't know. I keep questioning like how does he know? How does
He
she
doesn't
know?
he doesn't know what's in your head. He just knows that you're thinking about things.
Yeah, and I'm a big thinker.
You
So it's
are.
like a big thing.
And it's a good thing. That's what I want you to, you've been taught somewhere down the road that it wasn't necessarily a good thing. And I'm not gonna tell you to, if I don't want to tell you what to do because that doesn't work. But I just want you to think about for you what's happening during those times instead of looking at it like I should do something different. It's like,
Hmm.
no, what can I do?
Yep.
Because that's the way for you to go from the ends. Because your job right now is to learn everything you can. So when you're playing in college, you'll know what to do to be your best.
Hmm. Yeah, when I go to college games, I look at their head or I look at their face expressions and they have it very in control. And I look up to that. And even like when I'm at the games, my dad just like he's like, look at what happens when they make an error. Like look how they have no expression at all because they just have to keep it on one level and one level only. And I think just watching that and seeing that and knowing that I could be there at some point is like something to look forward to and like also like motivate me to like get better.
Absolutely. You have a goal beyond the goal, and you're connecting yourself with the people and the things that can support you to move toward it, to be prepared for that. And
Hmm.
so that's a part of your learning and a part of your gift to use to be prepared for that. And because goal beyond the goal is helpful because it's not about the goal, it's about we're dropping your idea of your goal into your timeline, and then your job is to move toward that, to be prepared for that goal so you can, you know, learn everything you can so when you're there, you're doing what you want to do. And so that's the benefit, and you're doing it automatically. So Press, what advice would you give maybe to parents on, you know, I know your parents and they're wonderful, amazing people. And what would you say to other parents out there that could be helpful?
Um I think just stop and realize like what you're asking your kids before you say it, because some things could like take a toll on someone and like really affect them, like and like stay in their head for a while. And I think just like it's really hard to understand like and know what's going on in someone else's head because it's physically impossible. But just really try to understand that there's a lot going on in your kid's life or in your kid's head, and just know that like they have a lot going on and they're trying really hard, and all you can do is just be there for them and support them and like tell them that they're amazing and tell them that they did so amazing, and just like recognize the good things that they did rather than the bad. And if they want to talk about the bad things, ask them how they could have done better. Ask them how they could have envisioned it as what they wanted it to look like or something like that. Just not anything that's like regarding like, well, maybe do not do that next time, or just don't think about it, because I think just don't think should be quoted somewhere of never say that again, because it never helps and it never has. So I think just realizing that would be very good. And um, I know some people don't like to talk about things that they struggle with in their head um, mentally, but like I didn't like to in the start, but I started meeting with Stacy and I have gotten really good at talking about it. And talking about it actually helps. So just helping open up your kids would really help, because when they talk about it, they let it out. And you also learn when you talk about it. Like even me talking about this right now, I think it just is helping me like process like what actually happens and how I can like learn from it by just telling another person about it. So yeah.
Well said, Press, because at the root of every problem lies a solution. And process is good because you're getting through the problem. And if we as parents cut our children off from that process, then we're stopping them from being able to get through the problem where the solution is. And so you couldn't have said it better. And we as parents, it's not, it's hard because we know that they can do it. And so we see them at their potential. And when they don't play according to that, we're going to note it. We're going to point it out. And
Yeah.
that's not always helpful because you know better than anyone what mistakes you made. You don't have to be told again.
Yep.
Um, and that's a little bit of a work in progress, but explaining as an athlete, explaining, this is where it's not helpful. This is where you're helpful. This is, having those conversations can be extremely valuable as an athlete so that you don't have them in your A circle in a negative way over time as well.
Yeah. And parents, you don't want to be the one that's in the A circle, because that's the hardest thing to get out. I think um, people are the hardest thing to get out, for me at least. And obviously it's different for other people, but I really struggled with that, and just being able to like know that you might be the problem just by one comment you may have said can be hard to realize, but once you do realize it, it can really change your kids or your friends like mind mentally.
Yeah, and nobody's harder on you, Press, than you are. And so if you have people around you that are also hard on you, it can just add to that judgment and that idea when you were younger, especially comparing yourself and not having everything figured out and all those things. And it takes some practice to manage your A circle. And using the sport to do that is what you're doing well and learning along the way. And do you see how you can use these strategies beyond the sport? Do you by any chance use them now in other facets of your life?
Yeah, I really do. And it's the same things actually come up in like school or tests or things like that. Um, and I use the same ways to fix it. And it's actually really cool how that works. So I think just understanding where your mind's at, um, and getting through it by whatever way works for you. So for me, feeling my pencil through my test writing, anything works. You just have to figure it out. And once you do figure it out, it'll work for you and you'll succeed. But you also go back to places where you need to kick things out and you need to think of other things. And I think it's just really cool how it all works.
So Presley, what does success mean to you? When you think of you and being successful, what does what does that mean for you?
Hmm. I think that could go a long way for a lot of people, but I think just for me, I think just being happy and content in where I want to end up being and just being with the people that I love in the sport and just like having the most fun that I can and get out of the sport because the best part of the sport for me is the people and the connections I've made through it. And I think just wherever I'm the most happy and I feel the most safe, I think that's being successful because you have to have fun to want to play the sport. So I think just at the end of the day, knowing that like where the fun is where the success is at with sports. Because you don't have to play sports later on. Like if it's not fun, then don't play. So I always have to keep in my mind that like it's a sport, Presley. Like it's okay. Like you have to believe in yourself, and at the end of the day, it's a fun thing. Like it's a game. Um, so yeah, I think being with my best friends and teammates that I love more than anything, um, and just having fun with them is like the most success I can get out of it.
So you describe very well, better than I could, about some of these things, about how to mentally train and work from the inside out and how valuable it is and how you do that very well. What did you learn today, or what can you use from today that you can take with you from this, I don't know, our talk or your experience and your explanation on some of these things? What did you learn today and what can you use moving forward?
I learned today that the parents' perspective of what you said about how they know that you can do it, so they kind of get a little thrown off and they want to say something about it. And I didn't realize that. Like I didn't realize that they know that you can do it, so they want to push you a little bit by saying something. And I didn't realize that that's how it comes off. So I think that was a new perspective opened up with me for me. And then I also learned that like putting each dot together for each like aspect of the game, like regarding what you said about how like I believe in myself and I know that I can do it, but actually putting myself into that position and performing the way that I want to in the actual game, in the actual moment, um, is something that I have to keep working on. And moving forward, I think I know how I'm going to go about that. Um, and yeah, I think those are the two biggest things. So,
When the people around you say things that in the past you may have seen it as not helpful, take that as a compliment because they do see you from your potential. That you can recognize it as, oh, that's, thank you. Yeah, but now what? Then you can move through it and doesn't have to stay in your A circle in a negative way. And you're
yeah,
absolutely right. You have everything you need inside. You just want to continue to practice and consider it. And you using your mental strategies as a way to be better physically. So when your coaches point out those things, those are gifts to you that you can then connect the dots and learn from and coach yourself through that. And, you know, first of all, I'm so grateful for you to be on the podcast with me. I think that your ability to show us where you're at, how you do it, what's been your experience is extremely valuable for people to understand how they can use it and experience this the way you have. But I want you to come back anytime and hang out with me anytime. And is there anything else you want to share today that maybe the audience could learn from you?
Um, like at the end of the day, just knowing that you'll get there. Because you always have to keep that in the back of your heart and just like believe and have faith in yourself that like you're, you're human, you're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna be okay, and you're gonna conquer the things eventually. Um, and I think for me, I've learned the most by just like observing other athletes and just like seeing what they do and seeing how they do things, whether it's a person in the pros or whether it's a person your age. Like, I think I have I have done a lot of observing, and I think that's really helped me just like envision myself later on, or like help me learn something that I wanted to do or something like that. Yeah.
Well, you learned at 16 what I still am learning, which is I've taken advice from lots of people that I shouldn't have because they didn't do what I want to do. They didn't, they maybe weren't people that had done what I am aspiring to do in my life, but I take advice from them anyway,
Mhm.
and that may not be helpful. So you're doing a great job at looking at people who are doing what you want to do, and you're learning from them. And I need to work on that a little bit more, Press, but I think that's a great lesson.
Yeah. And also like people should just realize that like you have to keep trying until it works out for you. And it might take time, but like um one of the biggest lessons I've learned as an athlete is um the most important and hardest thing to do in a sport is um conquering things that are like really hard and not giving up on something that you don't like in the beginning.
Mm.
Like, for example, like for me, I could not hit an outside pitch. I just really couldn't. And I was working on it with my coach, and he had told me that. He said, giving up on an outside pitch, learning this outside pitch is really easy to do because it's not fun to learn something new, something hard that's new. And he said, being able to not give it up and just get better at it without hating what it looks like in the beginning is really hard because like I said, like I love envisioning things what I want them to look like, and when they didn't look like what I wanted them to look like, I just wanted to quit because it didn't look pretty. And I just really took that sentence that he told me for granted, and I have used it in a lot of things in life, not just like in sports. Because I think it's really something that's important to like realize and know. Um,
Yes, well said.
yeah,
Because things get hard doesn't mean you quit.
yeah,
And just because you're not good at everything doesn't mean you're not one of the best even at that.
hmm
You might not hit the outside pitch as well as you can from a different pitch, but it doesn't mean that you can't do what you need to do with an outside pitch.
hmm And I
And
still struggle with it to this day, and knowing that really bugs me. But it's like you still have to keep trying because like it's still gonna be there. Pitchers are still gonna throw you outside,
yeah,
and the higher level you get to, that's all they'll throw to you. So you have to learn it at some point. And it's the matter of who's going to give up and knowing that, like, I'm not going to be the one that gives that up because it's not worth it. you know? So I think that's one of the biggest things for me. And it's actually really helped me. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And like I said, you have really taken this on the mental side and made it your own. And you're building mental strength in it. Continue to practice it and use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. I'll see you next time. You have a great day. Take care.